themselves, they're digging themselves into a hole.
I agree.
And now look, if you're just dating somebody casually, then you don't need to know their entire life story. But once you start getting into the point where you're going to join your finances together, or you might want to start having children together, these types of discussions are a must.
Well, once you're just thinking that this may be more than casual.
Yes.
Once you're developing a relationship, if you go into something saying, well, this is a potential relationship, and these are all questions that have to be put out on the table, and in my mind, the sooner the better.
Absolutely.
You know. My guest is Frank B. Kermit from franktalks.com, the author of a new book called The Eye of the Seductress, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men, which is what we are talking about. And if you've got something to say, guys, please, I want to know, do you feel misunderstood? Do you understand yourself and your own emotional needs? And from the ladies, do you feel you have a hard time understanding the emotional needs of men? Do you feel that you can meet those needs? I want to hear from you tonight. 514-790-0991. You can also text your message at 514-800. I'm Dr. Laurie Betito, and this is Passion on CJAD 800.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seductress, Volume 1, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men. This book is designed to teach women how to seduce men into making a commitment. By learning about the emotional needs of men, a woman will learn what makes even the most notorious players, pimps, and high-value men and quality male leaders commit to one particular woman. From the desk of Frank B. Kermit, the seduction relationship expert, this book is also a great resource for men to learn how to judge the value of a woman, to know if she is worthy of everything he has to offer. The Eye of the Seductress. Buy this book now at franktalks.com.
This is Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on Montreal's news talk leader, CJAD 800.
We're talking about the emotional needs of men with Frank B. Kermit, the author of The Eye of the Seductress, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men. Let's take a caller. Stephen joined us on Passion. Hi, Stephen.
Yes. Good evening, Doctor.
Hi.
I'm a doctor of the church, a practicing Roman Catholic and the faith, and I don't agree with this approach about emotional needs are important to a point of emotionalism, but we do not rely so much on emotions, Doctor.
What do you mean?
Well, you emphasize too much on emotions, like we don't build our life around our emotions.
What are you talking about? How we're ruled by so much
Doctor, I've got to run the mountain tonight. I don't necessarily feel like running, but I do it out of commitment. I don't basically go through life by how I feel. I do what is right.
Sometimes you're right. We have to do what's right.
I don't feel like driving to work sometimes, Doctor, but it has to be done. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes, but not everything is emotionally tied in. I don't think that that's what we're saying. But in relationships,
yes,
we have to look at the emotions that drive us, either to have bad relationships. Like if we're going to have a good relationship, yes, we need to be able, and correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but we need to be able to identify what our needs are and how to meet our needs. And not that our partner has to meet every need, but I think we need to have a good understanding of who we are and how we can find peace and happiness within ourselves.
I would really love to address this directly to Steve, if I may.
Please, go.
Steve, if you're listening, one of my rules of relationships for men, it's rule number 2. It's not your commitment to the other person that's going to make or break your relationship. It's your commitment to commitment. The idea is that sometimes you're not going to feel like doing certain things for your partner, but you're going to do them anyway because you made a commitment to that. I agree with that sentiment. What we're talking about here, however, is the emotional needs between two people in a relationship. If two people are not having their emotional needs met, yes, they may stick to a relationship because they both made a commitment to it. They'll also end up incredibly miserable if you ignore a person's emotional needs.
That's right.
My emotions, Doctor, I'd be angry all the time. But obviously, I do not live my life for my emotions. I live by what is right, logic. I apply a lot of logic. Do you agree with logic, Doctor?
Yes, nobody's saying that logic, sometimes we have to go with our minds. Absolutely.
There's
it's
no
not
logic and emotions, Doctor.
Yeah, we have to have a mix of both. You cannot live your life simply by logic. I'm sorry. As a psychologist, there's no way I could ever agree with that kind of statement. Thanks for calling, Stephen. Appreciate your call. All right. Do you want to add anything to that one, Frank?
I can understand where he's coming from, because what I think he's saying, which is not what we're talking about, is the idea is that you can't be ruled by your emotions to the point where you're going to start making bad decisions.
Of course.
Just because you don't feel like doing something in the moment, or in the moment you decide you're going to feel like, well, I'm really mad at my partner right now, so I'll do whatever I feel like. That's not what we're talking about here.
No, I think that's why I think the point was missed here. I just got in a text message that says, I'm trying to understand why a guy at 30 years old can't get into a real relationship after trying to date many women and still doesn't like any girls. I guess like them enough to take it further.
Okay, it depends on what he associates with being in a long-term relationship. If he grew up in a household where, let's say, his parents did stay together at a commitment, to use Steve's story, but let's say they really hated each other, and what he will associate with anything long-term is, oh, look at that, it's problems, it's fighting, it's hatred, and I'm on the receiving end. He grew up in that environment as a child. He's thinking, well, it's my fault, it's always going to be directed towards me. He gets into the world of dating, he dates a number of women, he starts enjoying himself, going on dates, the romanticism of it, that good, that new relationship energy. Every time you start dating somebody new, you're all aflutter, and you get the butterflies, and you get the nervousness, and you really want to try. And then a relationship starts getting more serious, and all of that goes away. The honeymoon phase is over. Things start getting a bit more serious. Things start getting maybe a lot less fun, even though you may be going towards happiness. Right.
And then that's the problem right there. So a guy like that, from if I can understand, is a guy at that age who sees that as his pattern, should really get counseling, therapy, in order to figure out and try to work through some of those messages for sure. Thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate spending the time with us. If anyone wants to get in touch with Frank, go to franktalks.com. I want to thank Mike Babbins in Master Control, as well as Abby Schachter, for taking your calls. News is coming up next, followed by the CJAD Comedy Show, Peter Anthony Holder, and Last Call with Saul. Have a wonderful rest of the night, and please remember, life is short, so make sure you take the time to smell the flowers and indulge your passions.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seductress, Volume 1, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men. This book is designed to teach women how to seduce men into making a commitment. By learning about the emotional needs of men, a woman will learn what makes even the most notorious players, pimps, and high-value men and quality male leaders commit to one particular woman. From the desk of Frank B Kermit, the seduction relationship expert, this book is also a great resource for men to learn how to judge the value of a woman, to know if she is worthy of everything he has to offer. The Eye of the Seductress. Buy this book now at franktalks.com.